Benchmade 710. It is a discontinued classic. A form of perfection, in my opinion. This video, I think, it's going to be on the Benchmade 710, but it's going to discuss preferences. We all have preferences and perhaps biases, and we all have biases, and opinions, and preferences, and knowledge, and experience that plays into that. And that's, I don't, this conversation is, or this video is not going to be a deep philosophical one by any means, but you know, I got, just from my own experience, I got into watching, and I like them, but knife review and knife videos about, well, late 2014. And the reason behind that is I lost basically this knife. I had one of these, and it's in pretty much every one of my videos, this story of mine, but it's the only reason why I'm doing this. And you know, because most of the stuff I review is like old, you know, I mean, I buy it a year, 2, 5, 10, 20 years after these knives even come out, or whatever. I've owned them previously. But I had one of these, and I when I bought it, when I saw it for the first time, I bought it. But I was just thinking, man, that is what a knife is. You know, that's, and there's no other knife. This is the best knife ever made. You know, and I still actually kind of more or less feel that way. I mean, obviously, life experience since then has told me that that's an impossibility. And however, in the end, it still is my favorite. Regardless, you know, I have other knives that are non-Benchmade favorite knives. I'll say that. But as far as knives go, that's my favorite. And I lost it. And then I was watching knife reviews. It turns out that the knife videos are like crack. For some reason, it really is. Like, it speaks to our caveman, our inner caveman. And I am a man of religion. I'm a Christian. However, at the same time, I do make references to evolution or cavemen. I'm sure there's been men that live in caves regardless of how you feel. And I have that in me. So I see a knife and it's like a female, and sounds real sexist or whatever, but females, who knows if it's through marketing, but apparently really like diamonds, you know, whatever. They see that, they're like on it. Well, that's the way I feel about knives. And I think a lot of people do. I'm definitely one of them. I mean, I've always have been since I was like able to walk. Like, and I know that because I remember when I was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, probably. I think it was my great-grandma. And I think that great-grandma, either the side of the family that was from, you know, down south, or like the rest of my family is all from Europe. So I honestly can't remember which one it was, but gave me this little tiny slip joint that she had. And I immediately lost that thing. But I mean, that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. It was probably like, you know, I mean, it was a tiny little thing. And I just remember it, and I had it, and then, you know, I immediately lost it. But and then I've always been fascinated by those, and hatchets and axes and, you know, whatnot. Still am, you know, my job now, it's all about hand tools, sharp hand tools, and chainsaws, and actually ski edges. Always has been a part of my life as well. Speaking of which, I do have another analogy for later in the video regarding skis, because it's not cycling mountain bike season right now, it's ski season, so my analogies will probably revolve around that. But getting to the preference part of this, well, first of all, for anybody that's not familiar with these, and I didn't look up the specs, but this knife, I think, came about in the late 90s, 98, 99, hit the market. and it was the first knife with a lock of this kind, as far as I know, as far as what's written. It's the Axis lock, which was a patent that ran out here a year or so ago. So other knives are able to, or other companies are able to adopt this, and either, I don't know if they can actually call it an Axis, but they can throw their own name on it. So it's a good and bad thing. I think that it's a good thing if people take that and make it better. I think it's good for people. As far as Benchmade, the company, who I really respect and I admire, their work that they've done, and I realize it is a money-making outfit, and they are doing it to make money. I still think that they're an honorable company that supports a lot of good things, and I think their customer service is up to par. And I think of them as a really fine company. But they came out with this. The designer was a father-in-law and a son-in-law, I think, McHenry and Williams. I can't remember their first names, but they came out with the Axis lock, and then this knife design. And since then, I'm not sure all of the models that they are responsible for designing, but I know for a fact that this is one of them, and they're out the front, the Infidel, which is another knife that I really like the looks of. I've handled them though; they're just not for me. They'd have to do out the front knife. I love automatics, but they have to still be strong. And I don't know. I can't say that knife is not strong or not, but I know that it's got a lot of moving parts, and a lot of the parts move, and I don't like that. So I've withheld from picking one of those up. But as far as this knife goes, as far as knife designs go, it is my preference. I really like this thing. I remember seeing it. I was never aware of these until, I think I started watching videos. I think one fellow in particular had this is one of his favorite knives of all time, type of a deal. And I went ahead and picked one of these up at some point. I think after I watched that. I know, well, I'm sure it was after I watched the video, but because of my job, and I wasn't aware of this until I lost this, well, the one, that I was eligible for a deal, if you're a government employee, etc., firefighter, law enforcement, military, that they give you a deal. So I kind of found that out, and so I started buying knives from them. And I think this is the first one I bought. Besides, I bought this, for example, I think beforehand. No, I bought an auto Adamas, and then maybe that, and then actually I bought that auto Adamas to replace. I did not like that knife. I like the knife, but not the auto part of it, interestingly enough. And then I picked this up. I think this was number 2 that I bought. And man, this thing is just, to quote a Star Wars movie, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it was from Star Wars, the original, episode 4. He was discussing the lightsaber as an elegant weapon from a forgotten age or something like that, something to that effect. And I just feel like this knife is an elegant knife. It's long and slender, and it's just my preference. That's what I like. And no, I'm not talking about women. Personally, with women, I prefer short and curvy. Not necessarily short, but curvy. But with knives, I definitely like stretched out, just like this one. And it is quite a thin dimensionally handle this way, and then that way is pretty thin as well. It's not as thin. I don't think technically it's as thin as that, which I think this is overly thin, and I think that's fine, but it might be a little over. But it's it's not as broad as that. I think it's definitely narrower than like the Griptilian. And those knives are all fine, but I think for this one, it's just a beautiful knife. And then I think that the blade shape itself, I really like. It's either a drop point or it's kind of a drop clip. As far as that recurve goes, it's unique to the knife to me, because I think this is the only knife I have with a recurve on a blade. And honestly, this one, I think, in my opinion, from what I've noticed using it, is I really only use from this part up. I kind of don't use that down there a whole lot, and I'm not really sure why. But all the cutting I do is out here, and I think that in hindsight, I would have. And I think this is a good example of a knife that could go with serrations. Like if you had this part of the recurve in here, this part serrated, and then this plane out here. And I noticed with sharpening, even on the corners of a Sharpmaker triangle stone rod, this part just is a little tougher. And perhaps I'm just not being patient. I need to put more time into it. And it's not quite getting to, because I just do a 15 degree. But I think this piece here would have been nice just to be serrated, because out here, I mean, it's just razor sharp relative to me. I mean, it's like, I'm sure you can make it sharper, but I know you can shave with it. You can shave your face with it out there. It's actually, as far as knives go that I sharpen, that I have, I can get that piece the sharpest probably out of all the knives I have. The Buck 110, for whatever reason, with that hollow grind, it gets extremely sharp. This one gets sharp. But as an example, I have, for whatever reason, I can get this one sharpens up really easily, but doesn't get quite that sharp. And of course, there's blade grind, and there's steel differences here too we're talking about. So it could be the D2, I'm not sure. I just know with the geometry, it seems for me, up past the recurve, it's just money, real nice. So yeah, as far as designs go, this is one of my favorites. I think the only knife is comparable to that as far as design goes, as preference-wise, besides that AFO, this guy is this. And I really like this all the way around. I think it's actually the better knife. This is the step up. This is the improvement. And it took them, 20 years or so, or 18 years, 20 years, close to 20, upwards of 20 years, to come up with a replacement. And I think that's what this is. I think all the way around, it's better. That doesn't mean I still like this, but I mean in hand, carving, like in use and everything, it's more comfortable. It feels like a stronger, firmer, more rigid knife. And then, it's got the bigger blade, probably all the way around the better blade steel. More stain resistant. However, I have noticed that this thing does have the same rust. I get little rust spots on this, just like I do on that D2. And I think, honestly, the D2, I got it from oranges, at work. And I think that, then I go to wipe it off, and I think my fingerprints, even with the orange, the citrus, it actually leaves like fingerprints on there almost. But, that this is this is a semi-stainless, and theoretically this is a stainless, and I've noticed like there's a huge difference between the stainless properties of, at least with Benchmade, their S30V and their 154 CM. Like these I've surfed, like literally, well, I've been in saltwater with these, surfing, and just because I just had to have it, not that I needed it, probably not the right knife to have with, but and I rinse it off fresh water, and no problems. Not this particular knife, but the same exact one, and no problems with that 154. I'd imagine with S30V, and then again I did rinse it off pretty immediately with fresh water when I was done with all my other gear. That's just what you do. But S30V, I have a feeling that it would corrode. Anyway, getting back to this. Now, with the coloring and the parts used, I don't like the orange accents. They do a custom, and perhaps this coming summer, personally, I think I'll go all red. I'll probably go red scales, probably black, everything else black. And then probably a red or black backspacer. I just, personally, preference-wise, there again, preference, I don't like the coloring on it. It seems kind of washed out, and then I don't necessarily like those orange accents, but you know what? It is what it is. It's like, if they would have kept it plain like this, I would have been fine with it. If it was all black or all, like, even a darker gray, like, that would have been pretty cool. And even with a black blade, I probably would have gone with that too, but they don't offer that non-custom. So, but they do offer that is an option. So with this, I think originally, I think you could get these with aluminum scales, and I think that would have been my preference. However, I think perhaps the reason why they went with this, because they do have other types of G10 they use. They have kind of some peel ply, I think, kind of like, well, they have this, like a polished G10, which would have been awesome. You know, this seems to be hold up pretty well. And then they have like, I don't want to use that as an example yet, but they have that Axis Striker, and if anybody's familiar with those, that G10 too, and that would have been great on this. Now, the benefit of this style, however, whatever they did to it, is it is actually more durable, and it actually looks brand new. And this is a 4-year-old, going on a 4-year-old knife. So the scales look brand new. Like the blade, you can't really tell, but it's got some scratches in it. It's got a little bit of rusting, and you know it's used. This is like the second or third pocket clip I've actually put on it, because those always get beat up. And then, you know, so I robbed this off of a different knife, I think, and then it came with a black painted one, and that's been finished a few years ago. So I just kind of rotate them in and out. Like on this is actually, I robbed this clip off of an Emerson. The best part of the Emerson is the clip, in my opinion. But so preference wise, like that, kind of elongated, stretched out. That's kind of like what this is, and that's what this is. So my other, and this is actually too, and that might be the reason why I kind of prefer this model over the newer one. The newer one, you know, it's probably an upgrade, but I think it does give you a little bit more material in the handle and a little bit more material. It's got a deeper blade, deeper belly on it, and that, I mean, it is probably an upgrade, probably an improvement all the way around. But I just still prefer that older style. So I was real happy to get my hands on that when I did. Being that it's been discontinued for years, I was able to track one down brand new. Kind of another example of the whole preference thing is this, you know, the Spyderco military. You know, and I think the Spyderco military at one time, when they were current, and the 710 were kind of like competitors, kind of like, you know, feel like, well, what do you like? You like the military better? Or you like the 710? So I ended up getting both. This one first, and then in the end, if I had to choose between the two, I'd go with the 710. Though I do really I like this one as well. I think this one is a really good design, and it's, you know, I think it's more popular in the world. And there's probably a reason people like it more, but this still does have the Axis, and now the military, I think the competitor is this, and this is like, to me, like vastly superior to the 710, or to the military, in my opinion. Just the whole overall thing, how much, even like just in your pocket, this one is better, takes up less space than this. You know, it really does. So, and then it's got the same, pretty much same blade length. This might be just a tad shorter, but the blade grind, I think, yeah. But, you know, this one I still like. It's just, you know, not quite what this is, in my opinion. And then, okay, so then preferences of things I don't like. Now, I like Spyderco knives. I like Benchmade. I like Emerson, actually. Sometimes I might never, as possible, I never buy another Emerson. That's simply because of their pricing. And I think of what you get for what you pay for. Though they do a really good job, especially on that 154 steel they have. I'm a real firm believer in that. So Spyderco, Benchmade, ProTech I really like. Emerson. And then the brand, and then Cold Steel. I do like Cold Steel as well. Cold Steel, though, none of them, like, they all, you know, I really like the Recon 1, and on this one as well. is kind of another favorite of mine, and it doesn't quite have the elongated, but it's not bad. It's not a short, stubby, fat little thing. It's not. See if we can get this thing back to focus. There we go. Yeah. So the one brand that I don't like is Zero Tolerance, and this is the only Zero Tolerance I could do a review on this because it's pretty much positive, but this design, there's stuff that they do, and now they've even I don't know, kind of jumped ship. This is from a few years ago, and I don't know how well they sold, but it seems like most of the models they have now, they're for a while before I even bought them until I got this. They were kind of, over the overbuilt brand, I mean, they got some cool design features in it that I really like. I like those, their hardware, like on that pivot I do. Some people don't. I mean, to me, that's cool. I don't necessarily, the pocket clip works great. I don't necessarily like the way it looks. But that G10 is more reminiscent of Benchmade's Axis Striker G10. And I like that. And it seems to be holding up pretty good, though it does discolor. It does kind of fade out look, kind of like most G10 does. Whereas this holds up and looks brand new. So there again, I mean, that's one of those benefits, I guess, if that's what you're after. I think it's a little slicker. But, it's not bad. And just the blade shape, as far as in hand and everything, I think it's a good hunting knife, hunting design. I don't know necessarily how good it is for all day cutting. I've never really used it for that. I've used it a lot, but not for straight up, backpacking and using it as my primary woodcraft type knife. Now this, I think it's a great knife. I think it's really well put together. I had the issue of the lock slip, which actually that's what, where's that scar? It was about a month ago. There you can kind of see it. I got a pretty good cut off of this thing because of a little spine whack test. And spine whacking, okay, so spine whacking, I never would do that in real life. Okay, I mean that's just ridiculous to me. But the thing is, though, is if you're actually using a knife, the reason why you have a locking blade is so that damn thing doesn't fold on you. If you're using it, and I do, and you're getting after something, you're cutting, and the blade sticks, and this is what happens. It sticks, and you pull back up on it. Well, if you're using a slip, or even if you're hunting, if you're working with game, you sure as shit don't want that happening then, and you do. You'll be. If you have to stick your knife in and cut something and lift up on it to open it up to cut more, you're using your knife to lever stuff and to pry with it, and if you got a knife like this, and I didn't hit my hand very hard on it, and that damn thing slipped and cut me, and that was my fault. However, that is an indicator that these knives, when they built these, I don't even know if they tested them in house, but when they built these things, because I'm not the only one this has happened to, but they didn't give a shit because they are marketing and selling it to people that don't use their knives, in my opinion, with a ZT. Because I've seen what they're making now this last year or two, them and Kershaw, because it's all under the Kershaw umbrella. Those knives are simply for people that collect knives and they like that. And the only reason why I like that is because you don't have a thumb stud, but that's what you can get an automatic too. So, flippers are fine. It's a fine thing. It's not really my deal. And then the whole ZT, what they do, kind of like their marketing, their image or whatever, it's not really me. I kind of like the image that this has, or Spyderco. Well, not even, well, Spyderco maybe, but they got their own thing going on. This is more for the sporting man. Which I am, a sportsman, and that they're like buck. They're like a high-end buck. And regardless of how people think about high-end, that you can think whatever you like. That's fine. It's my opinion. It's my video. So kind of short, fat, stubby seems to be a lot what Zero Tolerance does. And then the ones that they do stretch out, because they have 4-inch bladed ones, but they're like that recurve looking, trying to look futuristic. To me, they look like something from if I pulled that out and somebody said, "Oh, can I use your knife?" and they look at it "Oh yeah, where did you get this Chevron? Did you get this at the gas station?" That's what they'd think, because that's the way those knives look. This one's a little different. I mean, it looks like it's ready for use. That's why I bought it. But you know what? It's pretty heavy, and it's pretty overbuilt. And you know what? It doesn't mean shit. This little guy right here, This thing is, I would trust my life, or you know what I mean. I trust this one to, because this one I've done way worse things with this, and it didn't fold on me. This this thing, it weighs like, it doesn't even weigh 4 ounces, I don't think, and it's got this little delicate blade, little delicate handle. But you know what? It's durable. But this is not a rant. I could do a review on this later. Let's get back to the positives here. And then to contradict myself a little bit, because getting to like the stubby, this thing. So it's kind of a chunky piece. You know, it might be chunkier than that. I don't know. I didn't really compare them. I'm not going to do it right now. But this thing is made for action. I mean, it's got the oversized pivot. It's got the oversized stop pin. It's an axis lock. It's got a big old chunk of D2 steel, which the way Benchmade does D2, because I have this, I have that in D2, and then I have a Griptilian blade in D2 now. And I mean, they do a really good job with that as well. And this, I have not carried this on, well, one fire I did take it on, but I have used it kind of in pre and post season construction, you know, building stuff. I have used it. And it, you know, it's a good durable blade. Like, you can pound stuff with it. You can mark, you know, I was marking things, you know, for cutting. I was using it to pry. I was using it to scrape. And that blade, you know, I think I dulled it out a little bit up here, but it never chipped or nicked or anything like up in here, just because I was scraping on metal with it. It's a little softer steel than this, but point being, it held up great. So that speaks for the blade steel. It's a thick thing, and for this particular knife, I probably should have just got plain edge, but the thing, it'll whittle. You can whittle wood with it. I mean, it's good in the woods. You know, it's a great knife. It's pretty chunky. It's fairly heavy. Takes up some room in your pocket, but it carries, I think, a lot better than that does, because that's got that big old gnarly flipper on it. That's, you know, when you put it in your pocket, it's going to be contact your hand eventually. And this, I actually ended up putting a regular standard clip on. You got to drill the holes out to do it, because I don't really like those deep ride ones. And so putting this in out of your pocket, it's good. Just a quality knife. It's chunky, so it kind of goes against what I'm talking about. But this, I think, you know, how could you improve on that? For me, you know, for what I like. There again, those are 194 centimeter skis. And that is a Kesley MX98, 194 centimeters. It's basically like a big all-mountain Super G ski. Tough as nails. Long turn radius, 30 meters. That's the large GS. That's pretty much a Super G ski, and it's not for racing. It's for big mountain hauling ass. And that's kind of like what these are. You know, my preferences are kind of high speed. Big enough to get the job done. And you got to force them on smaller stuff, maybe, I don't know. But this, you know, this is my favorite non-Benchmade knife right there. And I'm going to get one that's the liner lock version too. Just so I have it, you know, so I have it. That thing, I mean, this is a great knife. I mean, that thing has got a big old thick stock, still a good cutter. I need to do a follow-up video on my initial review on this, but it definitely followed through with whatever. I pretty much carried this every day since I've had it, except for I did not carry it on the last fire I was on. You know, I still haven't taken it to work. If I had two of them, you know, I'm not going to pay that. I'm not going to buy two of these, but you know, I don't know. We'll see. But probably not. I probably won't. I still won't take it on fires. But every other day, this is pretty much my daily knife I have on me daily. God, I really would like to get more of these. Because who knows when they're going to come out with them again. I mean, I don't know when the last 2012 maybe is when they had these out last time, and I think this is a vast improvement on the original model. But anyway, yeah, if you made it through this video, I'm not getting paid for it. But if you did make it through it, maybe it's because it was entertaining enough or something. But anyway, I hope you have a really good day and you're having a great 2019 so far. Bye.